Hey, and welcome to the beautiful garden out here at Trinity English. And for this edition of Trinity in 20, today we have a real treat, a real blessing, in fact. Friends of Trinity, and I'd even dare say personal friends.
Yes.
Janelle and Aaron Lane, and they're going to tell you what they're about. But you all, if you get the Journal Gazette, and if you saw Wednesday's paper, Janelle and Aaron and their work in a group called Courageous Healing, mental health, particularly mental health in minority communities, got this great recognition. And I mean, my wife pulled this off. I don't usually read the Journal Gazette, except for what Luann gives me to read. And she said, look, your friends are there in the newspaper today. So congratulations, but tell us a little bit about Courageous Healing and about what you all do and what you're up to. And
certainly.
Yeah.
Well, as mentioned, we are Aaron and Janelle Lane, co-founders of Courageous Healing, Inc., which is a culturally centered, trauma-informed mental health facility located right here in the heart of the city of Fort Wayne, in southeast Fort Wayne. So as I mentioned, we're culturally centered and trauma-informed, where we have a specific, unapologetic focus on the BIPOC community, which is Black, Indigenous people of color. Now, I say that because we do have that intentional focus, but we also serve anyone. So we serve anyone who walks through our doors. We meet everyone with grace and dignity, no matter your race, socioeconomic status, ethnic background, whatever it may be. Courageous Healing is a home and a place for you.
Why is it important to be able to focus specifically on minority, particularly Black minority community people? What's the difference between what you do and maybe what's going to happen at a ordinary counseling center?
Certainly. So many of our clients have attempted to get counseling services from other agencies or other organizations. And it's not any intentional mistreatment of clients or anything like that, but oftentimes it's just the lack of understanding the cultural nuances that those clients are navigating.
Sure.
So, there are some, like if someone comes to you for help, there are some tips or some interventions that you might offer them, but if you don't understand the community that they come from, you might not know that there's barriers to them trying those tips. So understanding that background, we know some of the barriers. We've had the lived experience. It's just like when you look at addictions work. Some of the best addictions counselors have addictions experience themselves because they understand that nuance of what living that life is like, of what the barriers are, what the hang-ups are. And so we're just super centered on creating a safe, unique experience that doesn't feel like part of a system, because so many of the people that we serve have tried to navigate or had to navigate systems, and then they feel like the system is traumatic. So we have created a center that is more like a spa than a healing center.
Cool.
And so the approach to everything that we're doing has been super mindful, and we want people to get to come here, not to have to come here.
Amazing. So you've had your space open, how long? How long has your place been open?
Yeah, so it's been quite a journey, actually. So I'll kind of give you a little backstory or context to help you understand more so where we are today. So in 2014, Courageous Healing was birthed as a for-profit LLC organization that focused on counseling, consulting, and community outreach work. Janelle and I both were maintaining full-time jobs, a family, and Janelle was doing counseling.
I knew you back then.
Yeah, for sure. And Janelle was doing counseling on the side for individuals, sometimes for free, sometimes for $5, which obviously was a lot less than her counterparts were making at the time. So as we were having conversations back and forth about this can be done in a better way. It can be done in a more strategic way, and a way that allows us to meet people where they are and help people overcome the barriers of cost and access. So as we were having those conversations, what we decided to do was in 2019, we transitioned Courageous Healing into a nonprofit organization. So we kind of split the company in a sense. Courageous Healing, the mental health side of things, became a nonprofit, and then Courageous Living, LLC, which is our for-profit company where we get to go out and do trainings and consulting and things of that nature.
Speaking engagement.
Yeah, is a for-profit company still. So we really just split the companies.
Sure.
So in 2019, we became a nonprofit, and then 2 years later, in 2021, is where we opened the doors to our first brick and mortar facility again in Southeast Fort Wayne.
Amazing.
And I would just add, the reason that this is significant is because if you're familiar with the social work background, there's a micro, meso, and a macro level of engaging. So the micro level is that individual work. So we're doing that individual work with families and really trying to create change there. The meso is more like larger groups, so like the community and organizations and things like that. Then we get to the macro level and we get to use courageous living to go out and to do trainings and to also advocate at the system level to fight for policy change and take all the things that we're learning about what's creating the biggest barriers and the most trauma for underserved or marginalized populations, and to share that out and to help it make community impact. So again, this is just our attempt. It seems like we want to do everything and we want to have our hand in everything, and that's certainly not the case. We just feel like it's irresponsible of us to sit in a closed door with our clients and to hear those things that are hurting them and to not do anything about it. We can help them cope, we can give them tools, but we need to try to impact the things that are creating those issues and the challenges. And so this is our attempt at being responsible and having good stewardship of everything that God puts in front of us.
So I think I'd probably casually understand what you mean. So what would be something that you're working at that macro level and courageous living that you've drawn from what you've heard from people?
Well, here lately, courageous living and courageous healing have been entering into every single sector, like both of them. Even from a courageous healing standpoint, we've been doing more macro level work. So we recently got a huge grant from the Department of Mental Health and Addictions, and we're able to go down to Indianapolis and do, a press conference at the State House to be able to talk about the importance of, mental health and what funding does when you give it to the grassroots people. So to entrust people who know the ins and outs and the barriers and where to best implement programming and how to implement the programming, you empower them by giving them funding and trusting them to do the work.
Sure.
Instead of having us work through larger organizations or agencies, that grassroots level work is really a unique phenomenon, I would say.
And if I may add to that, a small part of that is us being able to now speak into some of the processes and criteria, if you will, that a lot of individuals who are sitting around the tables making all the decisions have never had before, in a sense. So we've been called to again speak at the state level, to speak into some of the initiatives that are going on
like
at
community-wide initiatives
that are going on at much higher levels than what we often get to participate in at the grassroots. So that's the macro level work.
We're also now sitting on different funding agency boards and things like that, and coming into committee meetings with funding agencies to help them understand ways to invest funding that's going to have maximum impact. And we're doing trainings for organizations, culturally centered trainings, trainings on implicit bias and things like that to help the organizations be more culturally centered and sensitive with not only the population of staff that work under them, but the people that they're serving through their organizations. And so that's some of the meso and macro level work that we're doing. I think the thing that makes it special is we give ourselves permission to show up fully and authentically in those spaces. And it's not easy to do. I mean, we've worked in corporate America for a long time. We learned how to code switch. And code switch means where you're yourself and you're authentic, but there are certain parts of yourself that are appropriate for certain settings. And so you tend to gravitate.
Leave those over there.
You gravitate towards what's appropriate for the setting and you code switch. But it's been important for us in this journey to code switch less. And I say that because it's creating space for authenticity for anyone who comes behind us. It's also really adding the diversity into spaces that can be hard to have if the diverse candidates or the diverse people that you have in the room don't feel empowered to show up authentically. Then there's perspective that you're missing, right? Because if they're there to represent a group, then they need to really be able to think like, talk like, act like, share thoughts and perspectives that are consistent with that group that might not be representative of the room. And so we've been being authentic in all spaces, and that's been a powerful journey for us, but I would say also powerful for the impact that we're able to make in whatever setting that we're in.
So and you all know Trinity, and you know that we are almost exclusively Anglo community. I mean, that's just how we grew. But what would you want to say to us here in that same sense? Without filters as much as what could we hear from you all? And I think we can say that because I know personally we trust you as friends.
Yeah.
That whatever you say to us
Yeah.
is truth and
from the heart, and yeah.
I would say for me, the first thing that comes top of mind for me is to really just be open-minded, curious people, right? And what I mean by that is when you approach things with a curiosity mindset, it invites in differences because you actually want to take time to get to know people and who they are, and their backgrounds and their lifestyle. We often talk about doing life with people, right? You have to be individuals that are willing to get out of your comfort zone and go and do life with people. In many of our trainings, we talk about how whenever we do trainings and whenever we do life with people, our goal as individuals, when we talk about equity and inclusion, race and culture, diversity, all these terms that are being used, is never to change an individual's perspective. Our perspective is based on our life experiences, meaning our upbringing, our religion, our childhood, all those things. So that's how we've come to see the world the way we see it today. So as we have these conversations and we talk about these things, my hope is not to change your perspective, but to broaden your lenses, right?
Right.
So
right.
as Pastor Ertles, you've come to see the world the way you see it today, and I can't change that because that's conditioned and deeply rooted in you. But my hope is that as you get to know me and we do life together, I'll broaden your perspective and you'll learn more about me and my upbringing and my culture that allows you to appreciate and value me as an individual and all that comes along with me.
Yeah.
So that's what I would.
The thing that came top of mind to me is Mitch Landrieu, who's the former mayor of New Orleans, did a study. He now has a company called E Pluribus Unum, which means out of many one, and he focuses on diversity and equity work. And so his team did a study. This is across all different cultures, many different states. It's over 800 participants, different socioeconomic status, different age groups. And what they found to be true was when we're talking about race and culture, white Americans, when they're talking about race and culture, are talking about an individual who has malice in his heart, hatred for a group, or intentionally wants to hurt or harm or keep opportunities from a certain group because of characteristics of that group. So when white Americans are talking about racism, that's what they're talking about. So when someone says, I am not racist, that's what they mean. Whereas Americans of color, when they're talking about racism, they are talking about the system. They're talking about systemic things and barriers that have over generations made life more challenging for them and for their family members. And so oftentimes when you see people having debates about race and culture, we're not even talking about the same things. We're debating, but we're not talking about the same things. And so I think that's amazing perspective to have because it helps to have more informed conversations.
Sure.
Everybody can get on the same page easier because we understand, okay, I'm not saying that you are racist. I'm saying these policies are making things harder for me. And then it also gives white Americans perspective to be able to say, you're not talking about me. So I can kind of set my guilt to the side a little bit. And I can say, well, what are the things within this system that we need to make better, right? Because now we have more of an awareness that these things, they exist, and they have existed for decades. And when people say them, they weren't just being sensitive or they weren't trying to make it about race. Like, it's been real. And so now how do we engage with that and what do we do with it? So I think it's important just to be able to have open, honest, raw communication in ways that is safe. It doesn't have to be judgmental or blaming because our history affects all of us. And all of us have a hard time talking about this. Nobody's super excited to be like, yay,
Yay,
racism.
I messed up.
Yeah, like, and even populations of color is not a warm, fun conversation. So we can agree that we have that in common. So if we're gonna have hard conversations, let's have them in safety because they're hard for all of us.
One of the things that recently we've started talking about here, and I've brought up here, and it's taken a long time actually to be able to get to this point in the conversation, interestingly enough, what I'll say, is that in churches, what do we think well, if I say in churches, what do you think Jesus is about? Right? And we think about that. And I have this friend in London, Sam Wells, and Sam is a theological ethicist, and then he's a pastor of a famous church in London. And he wrote this amazing little book. And one of the things he talks about in it is that he said, look at the life of Jesus. Jesus, if we could, we take the normal chronology, make it what it is, he maybe spent 1% rounding up of his life saving us, working for us, and that's not insignificant, right? I know you all go to church, Jesus, saving my sorry butt is not an insignificant kind of thing.
Yeah.
So 1% of his life working for us, 3 years approximately, if we take the chronology, right? 3 years working with us, teaching, miracles, healings, and whatever. And then Sam goes, where's the other 90%? And his theology evolved into it like, Jesus, 90% of his life is being with people. And in fact, hearing them. And he's so bold as to say, it's only after he did the 90% that Jesus knew what to do with the other 10%.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I know we think Jesus, comes down, knows what to do, but he's, that if we want to do anything together, we probably need to spend 90% of our time together.
Yep.
Eating together, hanging out together, listening together, waiting long enough that our barriers come down. Which is hard for people who are feeling, heavy weights on them.
Yeah. Yep.
So Sam says, be like Jesus.
Yeah.
And it's profound and very significant that you say that. And the reason why it's hard for individuals to be like Jesus, and we all lean on the love thy neighbor, but the reason it's hard for people to do that is because we're not in proximity of our neighbors a lot of times. Jesus was in the midst of.
That's right.
He surrounded himself with people who didn't speak his language, didn't work his occupation, with differences, right?
Yeah.
Which gave him a much greater appreciation for people who didn't share his same ways of living and ways of being, right? So if we can get to that point where we're all around each other and amongst each other and we're in proximity, I think it will be much easier for us to love our neighbors.
Yeah.
So as you're talking, it's just reminding me of how blessed we are in being able to do this work, because God literally trusts us enough to put us in proximity to the people who are the most marginalized, the most underserved, have the most barriers, and we are entrenched in the work of hearing them and understanding them and trying to provide healing. One of our board members pointed out to us and said, y'all, your business is going to be blessed because you're doing the work of Jesus. You're in his business.
Yeah.
You're in the business of healing.
Yeah.
What was his profession? Like, he's a healer, right? And you're doing his work. You are being the hands of Jesus. And so it's going to be blessed, especially if you stay in obedience. And it's been hard because we have faced a lot of challenges in getting our business off the ground and trying to get our community to understand why this is important, why this is urgent, and why people should be passionate about the healing of underserved populations. And so that has been a challenge for us, but out of obedience, he continues to bless it and give us what we need. And the fact that he trusts us enough to do the work means that we always must stay right in that perfect will of his, like in that pocket of obedience, and not get in front of him and not fall behind because we're afraid, because something feels too big for us, because he's literally ordering every single step along the way of everything that we're doing.
Yeah.
We could not do any of what we've done without his blessing and his leading and his guidance and protection and provision, and I could go on and on and on and on.
I know.
Yeah.
You all walked in today and you were wearing these shirts.
Yes.
And
Yes.
these beautiful shirts.
Yes.
And, what an amazing kind of statement.
Yes.
I'm
It's a necessary statement, which is interesting because within the populations that we serve, there's so much stigma. There's stigma everywhere about mental health, but helping to normalize it and just make it real and approachable. We dress down every day for work. We wear gym shoes and jeans. We're just people connecting with people because it doesn't have to be stuffy. Like one of our hashtags is representing healing. it can look different.
Yeah. But I'm looking at that, and I say this cautiously, right? But what do I have to do to get one of those?
Oh, you can. Well, we'll be selling them at our event this Saturday.
Okay.
And all the proceeds from these shirts go back to helping people heal. So we use these for scholarships for people who can't afford counseling services, and we sell them on our website as well. So they're available.
Because I'm sitting here and I've been thinking since you came in this afternoon that what would it take to have you all come that we could then have 400 people that could wear those shirts with you, create whole communities of.
Yes.
I mean,
it would be awesome. Yeah. Even wearing it out in the community.
Yeah.
It helps to normalize it. It's okay. We all have so much to heal from. Look at the last couple years.
Yeah.
It's okay.
That would be amazing, and something that stands out, and the reason I really love these shirts is because you notice it doesn't say I am healed. Right. It says I am healing, because healing is a journey. It's a process.
But it's a community
that's
event.
Ongoing, and it is. It takes a community, right? Yeah. We grew up in environments where they say it takes a village, right? We understand that healing takes a village. It takes family, it takes friends, it takes community, it takes a therapist, it takes Jesus, right?
Yeah.
Jesus and therapy. You can't have both. So it does. It takes a village to heal, and I think it's important for individuals to know that no matter where you are in life, the healing process can begin.
And it's okay to heal in community.
Right.
If I heal and he doesn't, how far is my healing gonna go? Right? If our kids heal and we don't, how far is their healing gonna go? Right? We need to heal together, and as a community, we need to heal together. Some of the things that have taken place over the course of decades, right? There's healing that needs to happen, and we can heal together.
Right, and we know even in any type of even Christian community, we've not always been good at that, right? And the church, whatever denomination, whatever makeup of church, has not always been good at that either. Of creating an environment for people's healings.
Yeah, it's hard to admit. Yeah, it's hard to admit that you need to heal.
And I think the biggest message for some is for some individuals to just know that it's possible.
It is possible.
That's the message. Our message to all the individuals that we serve, to everybody out there, is healing is possible, it's accessible, and the great thing is, from a courageous healing standpoint, we designed it with you in mind.
For you. Yep.
That's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah.
Pretty cool thing. Well, I'm hoping to be down to see you, to be with you fair on Saturday, to come on down.
Awesome.
I know one of our staff, Rebecca Karcher, is going to be there, and I think she's doing something.
You got a bug on you.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's just because we're friends. I can do that. Get that off you.
But thanks for being with me, being with us here at Trinity for a few moments. I hope that there is some moment when we could even have a formal church and courageous healing relationship.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. But thank you for being with us. God's peace be with you, and to the degree to which is possible, may we all be healing for each other, for this community, and for God's world.
Yeah.
See you soon.
Thank you.